Well, hello and welcome to Producer Dan. I'm Dan. Thanks very much for stopping by the channel today. Today we're talking about Hybrid 3. It's a very powerful virtual synthesizer that came bundled with my M-Audio Oxygen Pro 49 keyboard. And I'm doing a series of videos kind of doing a deep dive into some of the plugins that came with this and also that I have in my Pro Tools DAW. This comes included with the instrument expansion pack that you can purchase for Pro Tools for $299. It includes this and a bunch of other wonderful virtual instruments. Or you can purchase it on its own at some of the plugin websites, anywhere from $150 down to $15 if you get it on sale somewhere. So if you can get it at that price, I definitely recommend that you purchase it, snatch this up. It's available in the VST format or the AAX format or the AU format. For me, since I got it bundled with my keyboard, it came in the VST format, and so I had to purchase another plugin to make it compatible with Pro Tools. I'll do a different video on that next. Alright, so let's have some fun with some presets. This Hybrid 3 synthesizer is really geared towards trance and dance music, and it's really evident in this first folder here, Trance Chords Presets. Let's try some of the action pads. Let's try Sky Pad. Let's look at some of the sequenced basses. I really like these. This one's called Trance Bass. This one I really love. It's called Speedy. Miami Action Bass. I'm from Miami. Or I live in Miami anyway. Let's see what that sounds like. You can definitely hear these on some of the TV shows that are out now. Let's go into some wobbles. Waver Wabble. Let's move on to some drones. This one's called The City. You can hear the aftertouch on that one for sure. Huge drone. Okay, so let's look at the different components of the synthesizer. First of all, there's part A and part B. They are two completely different synthesizers with their own oscillators, their own filters, their own amplifiers. When we listen to this sound, you can see down here that both synthesizer A and synthesizer B are engaged. This is what synthesizer A is doing. And you can see that it is panned slightly to the left. And then when we look at synthesizer B, it's panned slightly to the right. And this is what that sounds like. Obviously, a little lower. It doesn't have the same resonance as side A does. When you put them together, you have this, a very wide, fun sequence sound. Okay, and obviously the step sequencers are playing a big part in this. And we'll get to that. Each side has their own sequencer. But let's start from the beginning. I'm going to set this to its default setting. And right now we're just using side A of the synthesizer. And if we look at the oscillators here at the top, if we notice the levels are all down except for oscillator number 3. This is turned way up, and it's assigned to a saw wave. You can change that to either a saw wave, a square wave, or a triangle wave. Here's what the saw wave sounds like. Okay, very plain. We're starting from 0 here. Here's our square wave. That has kind of a cylindrical sound. And then a triangle wave is really kind of a saw wave, but it's a little more mellow. Okay, so we'll go back to the saw wave. Now, oscillator 3 is different than oscillator 1 and 2. These are identical, and this has some slight differences. So we're going to turn this down and start from oscillator 1. I'll turn that up. And right now we have a saw sync wave chosen. Saw sync is actually two different oscillators together. When we've chosen saw sync, the shape is actually going to change the shape of one of the oscillator waves. If we chose the saw cross modulation, this shape button is actually going to change the pitch of that second oscillator. Now, if we choose multi-wave, that is actually 7 different oscillators all together. And the shape wave is actually going to change the tuning slightly between all 7 waves. So it's going to give us this really large sound. Okay. And then again, we have the square sync, the square cross modulation, the square pulse width modulator, and also a wavetable. Now there is 100 different wave shapes in the wavetable. You can't see all the way to the bottom, but there's 100. Now when we choose the wavetable, the shape button is just going to change the harmonics. So let's go back to a simple saw sync. Change the shape a little bit. Here we can change the semitones. By 2 octaves less or 2 octaves higher. Okay, and here we can just change slightly. So if we have different waves going at the same time, we can change in sense, which just knocks it off just a little bit. And I'll show you how that works by turning on oscillator 2. Okay, let's get a different sounding wave. Let's do a square sync. Okay, and let's pull this one down an octave. That's 12 semitones. And then we can knock it off slightly out of tune just a little bit to give it a bigger sound. Okay, and we can change the level of that if we want. Okay, and so that's how oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 work. And they both have modulation tabs, and I'll get into that in just a second. But I'm first going to just go over oscillator 3. I'll turn these down. So here we are at oscillator 3. Here we have an octave button. Here we have a sub button which adds an octave lower to the sound. And here's something fun. You can add a little noise to your sound. There are 4 different types of noise. Here's white noise, blue noise, modulation noise, and crackle. Okay, I'm going to turn those down. So those are our oscillators. And that's the sound we have so far. Now, your oscillators have a modulation tab, each one does. And this is where we can send the signal to different parts of the synthesizer, whether it's a modulation envelope, a filter envelope, which controls the sound that your filters make, the LFO, which gives you different shapes of oscillation, and here they are, the sine wave, triangle, sawtooth, square, S and H alt, random, and drift. So we can send our sounds to this LFO and it will bend the sound depending on what shape we put here. And I'll give an example of this now. So here are the parameters you can change in oscillator 1 and also oscillator 2. Like I said, these are identical. Oscillator 3, you can change level, the subnoise, and also the noise. So let's change the pitch to this sawtooth sound. We're going to send this to LFO 1. And that's what this is here. I'm going to make this a little longer, and you're going to hear the pitch go up and down depending on how much I turn up our knob here. So let's try like a random wave. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay. And there's also LFO 2, LFO 3, and a pump feature. And you can see those choices listed here, LFO 1 through 3 and the pumper. Also choices for the filter envelope, amplifier envelopes, the sequencers in the back, which we'll get to. We can also assign this oscillator to any physical MIDI hardware, like the modulation wheel, aftertouch, velocity, and so on. Okay, so it's a different day. I have actually saved what we've done so far, and I've called it Hybrid Demo. And I've saved it under my user presets. It's very simple. I just press save here, and you can see we have presets user. And I named it Hybrid Demo, and you just name it whatever you want. You press save, and do I want to replace it? Yes. Yes. So the first thing I'm going to do is turn this LFO back to a sine wave. I'm not going to use it. I'm going to take the pitch and send the pitch to our modulation envelope 1. Okay. And just so you can hear what we're doing, I'm going to turn this level up. I'll turn our 1 and 2 down just a little bit so we can hear what we're doing in modulation envelope 1 with our oscillator 1. So we're going to change the pitch so it goes BOM. So it'll go down in the beginning. And just like here, we're going to make a line here, and the signal will follow whatever shape we give it here. And these are very time sensitive, these dots. For example, here's the start time, and right now it's set to 1 second. And you can change that all the way to 32 seconds. And so really pay attention to what you're doing here rather than what this shape is, because this is not a very good representation of what is actually happening. So here's the start time. I'm going to move that to 0 milliseconds. And with the attack time, I'm going to pull this down. So you heard the drop in the pitch. I'm going to move this over because I wanted to do it rather quickly. Okay, that's what we wanted. So that's how your modulation envelope works. And again, you can send whatever through that. You can make the shape change or the level change. Or if we come over here to the oscillator 3, we can send the sub signal through there or the noise signal through there. So you can really send the signal anywhere. The possibilities are endless. So let's move on to the filter. So to demonstrate the filter, I want to maybe beef up the sound just a little bit. I'm going to give it a little bit of sub noise. So it's going to be 1 octave lower. Okay, just to thicken it up a little bit. And let's add a little bit of noise. Okay, so here we are in the filter. And firstly, you can add whatever filters you want here. These are all low-pass filters to some degree. And we have high-pass and low-pass filters with different degrees of slopes. Here's your high-pass filters. Just go ahead and experiment with these. With this low-pass filter, our cutoff knob, we can control how much of the highs we cut off. So let's listen to this. Okay, so I'm going to leave that there, and I'm going to put on some distortion. You can see we have different types of distortion here. Overdrive, distort, hard clip, rectify, bit crush, resample. So go ahead and experiment with those, but this is distort. And you can control how much by this knob. So with this filter envelope, we can control how much the filter will affect the signal with this knob here. Okay, so let's have it come in kind of a soft attack and then a very quick release. So you can hear that it lets up during this part and then clamps back down during this part. And with these knobs, you can adjust how the velocity will affect the note as well, whether it's the attack velocity or the decay velocity. And you'll find these knobs on all of the envelopes, including the amplifier envelope. Now, the amplifier envelope has the last say. This is where you want to set your decay. For example, right now, the release is very quick. If we wanted to lengthen that, we would just set our release a little longer. Now, here on our amplifier, we have the level. We have panning. We can put this to the left. For now, we'll leave it in the middle. We can add some effects here. We can hype the low frequencies. That's kind of adding just a little bit of excitement to the low frequency harmonics and the high frequency harmonics. Here at the bottom we have our 3 effects, and these are effects sends. So with these knobs we can send a certain amount to our effects. Here under the Effects tab, this is where we actually make the adjustments to the parameters of the chorus, delay, and reverb. And these knobs are just kind of auxiliary sends. So let's add a little bit of chorus. Let's add some delay and some reverb. And in addition to these effects, we have 2 banks of effects for part A and 2 banks of effects for part B. And they all come with these reverbs, delays, flangers, phasers, chorus, wah pedal. All of these effects are in each one of these inserts. So those are additional effects as well. Now, we've just been working on Synthesizer A. We haven't touched Synthesizer B. So let's listen to what's going on with B. That's our default saw wave we're hearing here in the third oscillator, just like our starting default in A. So what I want to do is copy our synthesizer A settings to our synthesizer B. So let's go to Part Presets and copy Part A to B. And now our synthesizer A and synthesizer B are exactly the same. So what I want to do at this point is pan A slightly to the left and synthesizer B slightly to the right. This is going to give it some width. Also, we can make some slight changes in the resonance and the cutoff. For example, for A, I'm going to change the cutoff just a little bit. I'll demonstrate that for you. So that's letting far less high frequencies through, and I'm going to do the opposite on B. So when we play them together, now they're very different, or a little thicker anyway. And we can change the resonance as well. So since I've pulled off so many high frequencies on the synthesizer A, I'm going to turn up the resonance. I'll turn this down so you can hear it, just to make it slightly different than B. So here's our settings for A, and here's our filter settings for B. Okay, so it's a thicker sound. Next, we'll move on to our sequencers. Okay, I really like working with the sequencer. Right now it's in the off position. Let's turn it on to step sequence. And I'm going to turn off synthesizer B right now, just so we can work on A. So right now the rate is on 8th notes. I'm going to make that just a little faster, turn it up to 16th notes. Okay, and this is where we can have some fun with the note sequences. Right now everything's set to 0, but we can change this. We can drop this down an octave or however we want. Right now it's 1 octave lower. That's kind of fun. Let's have it do it on the 9th as well. Okay, and let's see, for the 4th note, let's turn that up 1 octave, 12 semitones. And I'm going to do that on 12 as well. And we can actually lengthen these notes as well by using these buttons. I'll do that the same here. We can actually gray these out, so we can turn off the notes by hitting them twice. I'm going to do that here on the 11th as well. Okay, so that's how that works, and you can have a lot of fun changing the notes, and you don't have to do octaves. You can do whatever semitones you want. So at this point, I'm going to go over to presets again and copy part A to part B again, so it copies our sequences that we just did. So let's go back to the sequencer, and the sequencer for part B, you can see, is now the same as A. And I'm going to turn on the sequencer B. And one other thing we have to change, since we copied parts A to B again, it moved our panning over. So for part B, I need to move that back over to the right side again. And here's something fun. We can change the gate length of the note. So you can hear this. I'm going to turn off part B again. That's kind of fun. And we can also change the swing, which kind of puts the stress on a different part of the sequence, which changes the swing of the sound. Okay, we can also change the restart time. So now you can see it's going the full 16 steps. I can change that to 8, so it only goes halfway, well, which is really the same thing. Or we can make it just go 4 steps. So I'm going to play both parts at the same time, and here's what we have now. So again, the possibilities are endless. Now let's talk about the Control 1 and Control 2 parts of the sequencer. Okay, so to use Control 1 and Control 2, we will initiate it here under the Control sequencer. And we can set different parameters here, very much like what we've done up top, and it will make adjustments to the note depending on what we ask it to do. So I'm just going to make some quick parameter adjustments here, kind of in the same line as kind of what we've done above. And I'm going to go to the filter, and I'm going to send the signal to Control 1 and have it control the FM part of the filter. So I'm going to turn this up just a little bit, and here we'll find sequencer Control 1. We'll turn up the FM depth here. So it's adding a different FM signal to this first note, and then to these it goes in the opposite direction. I'm going to go back to our step sequencer here. If you look closely, you can see we have different arpeggiator settings like up, down, up and down, as played, random, and phrase. And that works just like any other arpeggiator. But I'm going to choose phrase and move down to our different choices here. And this is vast as well. So I'm going to choose just something at random here. So here's bass number 6. And there are obviously just, I don't know, hundreds of different presets here that you can experiment with. But it'll put a different step sequence, a pre-programmed step sequence, into your step sequencer. And this phrase obviously works on both A and B. So let's go back to our step sequencer, and I'm going to cover the morph buttons quickly before we close. Now to edit your morph knobs, you do that here, and you see them numbered 1 through 4. Let's program morph knob 1. So I want to use it to adjust the cutoff knob in the filter. So to do this, I'm going to hold down my shift button and move this in one direction. And let's have it adjust the resonance, but we'll have it go in the other direction. So now morph pot 1 is adjusting the cutoff and the resonance on synthesizer A. That's just a way to control different parts of your synthesizer all at once with one button. Also, if you come to the common area, your morph knobs can be assigned to physical MIDI adjusters like the mod wheel, the aftertouch, your pitch blend, or foot pedal. You can add more voices to your synthesizers with this button. You can detune them and pan them. You have further controls over your synthesizers here with pitch voice A and pitch voice B. You can change the octaves of the entire synthesizer A or B. You can tune A or B. It's kind of like a master control here. You can control the or limit the amount of voices on each synthesizer. And you can also add some doubling and some width. And that is the Hybrid 3 Virtual Synthesizer. And I'm very glad that it came bundled with my keyboard. So I hope this video was helpful to you. If you have this instrument and haven't played it much, I'm sure this video will help you kind of navigate it and find your way around. And I hope it helped you if you were searching for a virtual synth. This one's been around for a while, but they have updated it. And it's certainly still a great virtual synthesizer. And I'm so happy that I did this deep dive. So thank you very much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give me a thumbs up. And subscribe to the channel if you like my content. And I look forward to seeing you on my next video. Take care.